Good afternoon. We just had a very interesting meeting with the top leaders of the Jewish community in the state of New York, representing the full spectrum of the Jewish community. We did a debriefing of a trip that we took to Israel, August 12th to 14th. The purpose of the trip was very simple. It was a unity mission. It was to communicate to Israel that the state of New York stands behind Israel and defends their right to protect themselves. The trip was fascinating from my point of view. The governmental leaders were very receptive. They were grateful, frankly, to hear New York's statement. We brought business leaders as well as government leaders. On the governmental side, it was an unprecedented, nonpartisan, bipartisan delegation. So New York truly spoke with one voice. We met with the Prime Minister, we met with the President. We toured the Iron Dome defense system, the missile defense system. And we took quite a bit of time understanding the recent discovery of the tunnel system that has invaded, in many ways, Israel, and is a frightening new development. I think all New Yorkers and all Americans now, when you turn on the TV news and you hear about ISIS and different branches of the continuing and growing extremist movement, the situation actually becomes clearer. This is not just about Israel. This is not just about Hamas. This is the entire Middle East. This is a network of terrorist organizations that are growing in number and strength. And almost every smart Middle East voice says it's Israel today, it's the Middle East today, it's Europe tomorrow, and it's America thereafter. So this is not just an Israel issue. It's an American issue. And it's the Middle East first. And literally since we've been there, I think that's even become clearer to the people in this country. So Israel as an ally, as a military and strategic ally, as the cultural connection, the personal connection, I think our support of Israel is paramount, and our ability to speak to that with a strong and unified voice was very important. With that, let me turn it over to Speaker Sheldon Silver, who was with us on the delegation. I want to thank him for his insights. Clearly, the Speaker has a long history with dealing with the Israel government, and he was prophetic in seeing this situation evolve. And we had the first conversation about putting together this delegation, and it was the Speaker's idea, and I want to thank him for it. Speaker Silver.
Thank you, Governor. First, I really do want to thank Governor Cuomo for organizing this mission to Israel, for showing our unwavering support on behalf of New York State to Israel. And as we all saw, it was truly meaningful for New Yorkers and Israelis to see our unified delegation come in this time of crisis. It was amazing, the brief time that we were on the ground, and I know some of you in the media were with us for about 30 hours on the ground, visiting with the Prime Minister, with the President of Israel, former President Shimon Peres, and the Defense Secretary. We were exposed to the immense challenges that Israel faces in protecting their people who were faced with relentless attacks from terrorists determining to erase Israel from the map. And there is no substitute for being on the ground, seeing for ourselves the enormous and indeed existential threat that was faced by Israel. Those of you that joined us, you saw firsthand. Otherwise, let me say, we saw what the tunnels meant. Nobody could imagine the tunnels, even from the great descriptions in the press of these network of tunnels that were there to bring destruction, to bring killing, to capture and kidnap people. That was their purpose. Tens of millions of dollars went into that rather than being spent for hospitals, for schools, or places for people of Gaza to live. That's what took place, that we had the opportunity to see firsthand. As I said, as the governor said, we saw the Iron Dome defense system right up close, firsthand. We talked with Israeli citizens, we talked with New Yorkers living in Jerusalem. I was inspired by their optimism and the energy as they lived in places where sirens had them running back and forth to shelters several times each day and night because of incoming rockets. I think, as the governor made clear, the issues are very clear. It's not only Hamas, it's Hamas and ISIS and Al-Qaeda and all the terrorist groups, and Israel just stands out as an oasis in the Middle East, and more so representing Western democracy in the United States. And after Israel, that's the next target. So I think it was important for us to stand with Israel and important for us to stand with New York's Jewish community as we did today and report back on our mission to Israel. So thank you again, Governor, for having this mission together.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the powerful statements of the mission, I believe I was the only governor to visit during that period of time. We were the only state delegation. And one of the powerful statements of the delegation was, we're speaking with one voice. We are unified. This is not a political issue in the state of New York. We're Democrats, Republicans, we're united on this issue. And the Senate leader, Dean Skelos, being part of that delegation, made that point loud and clear. They understand New York politics. They understand this is a political year. And the fact that we were united on our support for Israel was a very powerful statement. And on a personal level, I want to thank Senator Dean Skelos for making this trip during the political year. We worked cooperatively for the past 4 years doing governmental duty. In a political year, things get a little bit more complicated, but the senator put his official function ahead of his political issues, and I applaud him for doing that and coming on the delegation. But his presence was very, very powerful, and I thank him for that. And with that, Senator Dean Skelos.
Thank you very much, Governor. You know, many times the media writes about 4 men in a room. This was 4 men on El Al. And it was the right place for all of us to be at the right time, showing that New Yorkers, through their elected representatives, different branches of government, different political parties, people from the business community, stood united at a critical point in Israel's history, but also a critical point in our world's history. So we went there to show solidarity. I think it was an uplifting experience, certainly for us, but also for many of the Israelis that we had the opportunity to meet. But we also learned firsthand about the direct threat that the state of Israel is under on a daily basis. And I think sometimes those of us who live in this country, as we move away from 9/11 in time, we don't see how this is a period of history where the United States is under threat. You have so many of these terrorist groups who are now rallying to establish a caliphate. And all that means is they want to destroy Israel, they want to destroy Europe, and then they want to come and destroy us. And that's why we've stood in a very straight and direct message that we cannot tolerate this, but it is also my hope that our federal government, through its leadership, send as a direct message that Israel is our ally, they are a democracy, that there has to be a strategy to destroy the world terrorism that exists out there right now. So Governor and Jeff Klein and Speaker Silver, members of the Unity Delegation, I appreciate the opportunity that we all had. And Governor, thank you very much for your most generous introduction, but also invite to join with you. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure, Senator. Now I'll turn it over to Senator Jeff Klein, who is the head of the Independent Democratic Conference, which is a partner with Senator Skelos in the managing of the Senate. This is our first coalition government, if you will, in Albany, and we think we had a confusing, tricky year until we met with the president of Israel, who's the former head of the Knesset, who was explaining to us the coalition in the Knesset, which makes our coalition look like a kindergarten in its simplicity. With that, Senator Jeff Klein.
Thank you, Governor. As a matter of fact, Benjamin Netanyahu was amazed that our coalition has been around for 4 years. Israeli coalitions don't last as long. But again, I want to thank you, Governor, once again for your leadership, and I was truly honored to be part of this delegation. You know, when I went on this trip, clearly I was someone throughout my career a staunch supporter of Israel. And I think seeing with my own eyes the Iron Dome, the terror tunnels, once again, Israel is not the aggressor. Once again, Israel is defending the Israeli people. And I think what was really, I think, eye-opening was to see the terror tunnels clearly built, so they come right up on top of Israeli soil. The one we viewed was right on top of a kibbutz. Clearly to kidnap and kill Israelis, to see how Hamas was using the Palestinian people as human shields by firing rockets off of hospitals, mosques, schools. You know, clearly Israel, I believe, is being very, very careful while defending the state of Israel, but making sure not to take innocent lives. It was important we were there because I think, as we told the delegation of Jewish leaders, and certainly myself, since I came back, not only speaking at synagogues, but speaking throughout my district to Irish Americans as well as Italian Americans, really everyone else, that this is something that not only is important for the state of Israel, but important to us. When Prime Minister Netanyahu looked us in the face and said that this is a war on terror, yes, now against Israel, but later against the United States, that resonates with people. I think there's some, unfortunately, in the media who are always going to portray Israel as the aggressor, that somehow Israel is not a democratic state. But I think people know. People understand. I don't think people forget 9/11. I don't think people forget that Israel is the only democracy. It continues to be the only democracy that exists in the Middle East. So I think our role, not only as a unity mission, was to show solidarity, but now back in the States, getting the word out there, getting the real message out there to not only Jews, but to all New Yorkers, that we have to stand by Israel. And again, it was a pleasure to be with Senator Skelos, Speaker Silver, and of course our governor and everyone else, because I think this was something that really made a very important statement about us as New Yorkers.
We also had, as part of the delegation, unified government. We also had business leaders with us. Kenneth Cole from Kenneth Cole Productions, Neil Cole from Iconics Brands, Howard Mayer, who also runs the Tolerance and Holocaust Center, Chairman Emeritus of Nassau County, and Mort Zuckerman, who is Boston Properties, publisher of the Daily News, editor-in-chief of U.S. News and World Report. And with that, let me turn it over to Mort Zuckerman.
Thank you, Governor. Let me just say that if you had to imagine the United States being attacked from the south by Mexico and from the north by Canada with thousands of missiles coming in, 4,000 so far, in which about 75% of the American population would have to find a safe place to hide and have about 60 to 90 seconds to do that, you would have a feeling for what the Israelis have been going through. And so I think it was a wonderful statement of the people of New York, led by its political leadership, to go to Israel and to show that we do understand what they have been enduring. And I think it has really been unfortunate that there is some, shall we say, sense of disparagement of what Israel was doing in response to this, as if there were some deliberate attack by Israel against Gaza, when it's quite the other way around. Let me just say one thing about the Palestinian Authority. They were able to somehow or other make a deal with Hamas. They've been unable to make a deal with Israel, which has been trying to work out a solution to the differences and to the issues facing that part of the world for a long, long time. So you have really a radicalization of what's been going on in the areas around Israel and with the Israelis having to cope with it and deal with it, never better expressed by the 4,000 or so missiles that have been coming into that country like so much rain in a very, very difficult storm, and they've had to find some way to cope with it. And I think it was just wonderful for the political leadership of this state to, by their presence, express their solidarity with Israel. And I was honored to be a part of this delegation as well, to express my solidarity with Israel for all that it has had to endure and for all that it has done in order to try and bring about a peaceful solution with their neighbors.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Zuckerman. The Consul General from Israel was instrumental in organizing the trip. This was a complicated mission. It was a complicated time to be visiting. And I'd ask, first, we thank the Consul General for all his effort and for really a tremendous trip that he organized. And I turn it over to Consul General Aharoni for comment.
Thank you so much, Governor, and thank you, members of the delegation. In my 23 years in public service, I've been to Israel from this end, from the United States, with 3 mayors, with 3 governors. On the receiving end from Israel, I was part of countless missions and solidarity groups that came over the years. But this trip was unique, and it stood out. And I think that its uniqueness stems from 2 reasons. The first is, and you mentioned, Governor, that you were the only governor visiting Israel during those 50 days of intense fighting between Israel and Hamas. But I'd like to add to that, and not only that you were the only governor, you were the only foreign leader that came to Israel to show solidarity during this war that Israel had with Hamas. That's the first reason. I think that the Israeli public responded accordingly, and the response was very emotional. It should be. And I think that Governor and members of the mission, you felt the warmth and the appreciation and the deep gratitude wherever we went, and of course the unbelievable number of New Yorkers that we encountered in Israel was also added to the emotional dimension of the visit. And the second reason is because Governor and you and the members of the mission addressed head on. You confronted the most difficult challenge in terms of the public conversation around the operation. The biggest challenge that we had and still have is to make a distinction between the ongoing conflict that we have with the Palestinian National Movement, which we are trying to address on and off in negotiations since 1993, and this particular conflict that we had with Hamas, which is part of a larger conflict, a clash of civilizations, if you may, between Western values and global jihad. And I think that your message, Governor, and the message with the members of the mission helped us not only clarify this issue, that Israel is fighting the fight of the free world, that when people who sympathize with Hamas call to free Palestine. What they actually mean is to free Palestine of Jews and to free the Middle East of Western values. And ultimately, it's the war of the free world that Israel is fighting against Hamas. And today, of course, when we see the brutality of ISIS and Islamic Jihad and the likes, we fully understand what's at stake here. So I'm here on behalf of the people of Israel. I'm here on behalf, and I believe I'm speaking on behalf of every American, Jew or non-Jew, that carry Israel in his or her heart, to express our profound gratitude and appreciation for this display of support, which is another chapter in a very long tradition of support for the state of Israel here in this great state of New York. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Council General. We will now hear from Michael Miller, who joined us for part of the trip, who runs JCRC, which is one of the foremost Jewish organizations in the state of New York. Michael?
Thank you very much, Governor. I want to thank you for your leadership in organizing this delegation, this unity delegation, and all those who participated with you, Speaker Silver, Senator Skelos, Senator Klein, and the business leaders as well. The outstanding work, of course, of the Consul General, who made certain that the meetings would be something beyond what normal missions are. Having accompanied about 80 missions to Israel over the course of my career, I can say that this mission truly was one of the more exceptional missions, if not the exceptional mission of them all. Particularly, Governor, as you led us to the tunnel that was discovered by the Israel Defense Forces. We read about it in the newspapers. We can even see it on TV, but until you're there, you really don't know or can't have an appreciation for what these terror tunnels are and how sophisticated they are. And I think that brought to light as well as to heart the challenge that Israel faces, that you, Governor, and the delegation, I thought brought home very, very vividly here to New York as well as to America and literally around the world, considering the coverage that your trip had. We in New York are exceptionally grateful for this delegation having taken this trip, as unprecedented as it was, as the Consul General has said, during the course of this conflict. I think that the trip, on behalf of the 60 or so organizations under the JCRC umbrella, reinforced the bond, the very strong bond between the New York Jewish community and Israel, but far beyond that. I think it really underscored the bond between New York and Israel. Having our governor lead a unity delegation of Democrats and Republicans to Israel during this very, very difficult time is something that we indeed are very proud of, and I was very, very grateful during the course of my stay in Israel for other reasons, for business reasons, JCRC reasons, but to have been there for the second day of the trip where the meeting was held with the defense minister. We saw the Iron Dome facility and then into the terror tunnel. So once again, Governor, thank you so much for taking this trip and for communicating the messages so effectively that you did.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michael. Now we'll hear from Eric Goldstein, who is head of the UJA, and he was part of the debriefing session that we just concluded downstairs. Eric Goldstein.
Thank you, Governor. These are very, very difficult and trying times in Israel. So on behalf of UJA Federation, which is the largest local philanthropy in the world, we are grateful. It means a lot that the governor and this senior bipartisan delegation came to Israel at this critical time. Having been in Israel 2 weeks ago on a UJA solidarity mission to look at the critical needs there and to be sure that we're there to support them, we recognized how much people appreciated the fact that people came from around the world to show support. And I know that someone like the governor, it makes it particularly important, particularly significant, particularly meaningful that the governor and this senior delegation took the time at this particular moment to stand with support and solidarity with the people of Israel. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. We have two follow-up items from the trip that we'll be working on. We spoke to the Prime Minister about a technology summit, an economic development summit focusing on technology. There's already been quite an exchange between the U.S. and Israel when it comes to technology companies. We want to do even more. We think there's mutual beneficial, that can be mutually beneficial. Second, we're going to do a joint tourism effort where New York has a Pathways Through History program, which basically identifies key significant sites in New York that tell the story of New York's history and the country's history, military sites, social developments. Israel will develop a counterpart to the Pathways Through History program, and then we will jointly market those programs between the U.S. and Israel. So we're eager to do that. I will stop there. We'll take questions now, on-topic questions. Any off-topic questions we'll answer after this briefing is over.
Governor, I know it's not to be obvious here, but it is a re-election year, and you said the Jewish leaders certainly appreciate the delegation taking the trip. Do you think by extension Jewish voters also appreciate seeing their state leader go?
I don't know, Zach. I don't know, in truth. I think it was clear that this was the time to go, right? It's, you say it's a political year. I frankly think more relevant, it's a period of conflict and war for Israel, right? 5,000 missiles are falling from the sky. That's what made this timing relevant. There's a question of who stands with Israel and who doesn't stand with Israel. That's what makes the timing relevant. People were dying. That's what makes the timing relevant, not the politics and not the political calendar. And it's a controversial topic. There's no doubt about that. And normally during a political year, you stay away from controversial topics. I think on this topic, I think it's very important that the state of New York stands up and defends Israel's right to defend itself 100%. I think it was important to do it when we did it, which is right in the middle of the conflict. I think it was important to do it as a state and as a united delegation at a time when the international community had different opinions, when people in this state had different opinions, when people in this country had different opinions. And I think it was important for New Yorkers to say, we went through 9/11, we have a special sensitivity to terrorism and threats and the pain and the hardship. We have a special connection to Israel because we do. Economically, we do. Culturally, we do. And I think it was important for New York to lead. We talk about leadership, and we're leaders of the government. I think it was important for us to lead at a crucial time. And the time we went was the exact epicenter of the controversy. Frankly, since the time we went, I think the situation is even more clear and more profound. Our point was we stand with Israel. But this is not just Israel's problem. And it's not just Israel and Gaza, and it's not just Israel and Hamas. It is democracies versus extremism and terrorism. And Israel is a target because they're a democracy. And they're a democracy in the Middle East. And the terrorist threats are getting worse, and it's Hamas and Hezbollah, and now it's ISIS, and they're growing, and they're getting more extreme, and they're anti-Israel, and they're anti-Europe, and they're anti-America. So it's not about over there. What is over there is going to be over here. And it's going to be over here much sooner than we think. So the cluster that would say, well, that's Israel's problem, that's Hamas, that's Middle East, that has nothing to do with us. That's the ostrich strategy. Put your head in the sand. First, if it were only Israel's issue, we should stand with Israel, even if it was only their issue. But it's not their issue. It's our issue. So when we stand with Israel, we stand for ourselves and our democracy.
Your challenger, Zifra Tisha, she hasn't taken a strong position on Israel. What do you think of that she's not really said anything?
We'll take off-topic questions and political questions after this briefing, but basically what I just said. I think, put the politics aside, Democrat, Republican, because I don't believe this is a political issue. Senator Dean Skelos is a Republican. Before he's a Republican, he's a New Yorker. I'm a Democrat. Before I'm a Democrat, I'm a New Yorker. And this is a New York issue. We have a special connection with the state of Israel. Part of it is mutuality. Part of it is self-interest. Part of it is cultural. My brothers-in-law came with me on the trip. These are personal family relationships. So we have special connections as New Yorkers. I think New York has an obligation to stand with Israel and support Israel at a time of need. I think that's when friendship is most important, not when things are good, but when things are tough. I also think any New Yorker who doesn't understand that Israel's fight is our fight is living not in the state of New York, but in the state of denial. This is Israel versus terrorism. And terrorism is growing, and the forum is now Israel and the Middle East, and the forum will become Europe, and then the forum will become here at home. As we know very well, in some ways better than any other state, because we went through 9/11. So we know what this is all about. Any of my colleagues want to comment?
This trip, I know you had an invitation to meet with both housing before you left. Has there been any discussion or concerns with that?
We will be having discussions with the Arab community. We have before, not since the trip.
Governor, I noticed that there are among this group all men and women. Why is that?
They were governmental leaders, and then my brothers-in-law, who happen to be men. Otherwise, they couldn't be my brothers-in-law. And Mort Zuckerman, who is a business leader extraordinaire and a longtime supporter of the State of Israel.
Maybe having any follow-ups with the State Department after this trip as well? I mentioned two other items.
Not that I know of, unless necessary.
Was there any kind of contact with the State Department before?
We had an exchange of information, but nothing extensive.
How were they helpful?
They were helpful. Logistically, it was more a question of logistics than anything else.
Nothing on policy?
At the ambassador.
The ambassador was very helpful in making the arrangements. And we had prolonged discussions with the ambassador before and after.
Last question.
Both ambassadors, by the way, were very helpful.
Governor, you're speaking of the threat in the Middle East and threat in Europe and eventually the possibility of the threat coming home. Do you think the state and primarily the city would be prepared or is prepared to deal with a possible attack on Israel?
I think one of the legacies of 9/11 was that we will never forget. One of the legacies of 9/11 is we understand terrorism. We paid a terrible price for it. We live with it. We live with the pain. And part of the legacy is we understand how it could happen at any time and how this is a target state. And it's a reality we live with, and we're doing everything we can to be ready for it. New York City, New York State, and in combination.
All right, guys, thank you.
Thank you very much.